About a week and a half ago, I made a video where I talked about what the choice of which city you chose to save, Minrathis or Treviso, can mean from an ideological perspective about who you think should bear the brunt of a war. The people or the resistance fighters who are fighting for said people's freedoms. If you haven't watched that video yet, do consider checking it out after you're done with this one. But that video got me thinking about some of the other choices we get to make in the game, and how, if the city choice can be based off of what our ideological beliefs are, which are the guiding principles for how we choose to live our lives, well then, is it possible that this can also be applied to the other choices we get to make in Dragon Age the Veilguard? Especially as we get closer and closer to the end of the game. A choice like, should the Griffins be released back into the care of the Wardens or allowed to roam in Alarthan forest? And thus, the idea for this video was born. And an idea for a video series, actually, where I keep exploring what might be the deeper themes of the choices we get to make in Dragon Age the Veilguard. So yes, I will be creating a playlist to this effect. For those who need the warning, there will be spoilers up until the end of Davrin's loyalty mission, as that is the point where we get to make that choice. But there will be no spoilers beyond the mission. These spoilers will include gameplay clips and also story beats as I analyze the choice and how we got to the point where it had to be made. If you're still playing the game and haven't gotten to Davrin's loyalty mission yet and don't want to be spoiled, I will suggest you close this video now. Thank you for giving me this much of your time as is. If you've either played beyond that point or don't mind spoilers, well then, settle in for a ride. Also, depending on how well you'll respond to this particular video, I might bump up my video on what the choice of Manfred or choosing to make Emmerich a Lich Lord might mean with regards our approach to death and life after it. So, the ball really is in your court. Before I jump into the video proper, however, quick introduction. Hello, I'm Noria, and on this channel I make videos where I discuss themes, characters, narrative structure and beats, and analysis basically of media. This includes but is not limited to movies, TV shows, books, anime, and video games. If that sounds like something you might be interested in, do consider checking out some of my other videos. If you like what you see, don't forget to hit subscribe. If you're also interested in watching me play games, at the moment I'm almost done with my playthrough of Dragon Age the Veilguard, then do consider checking out my Let's Play channel. P.S. It's Noria. The link to it will be in the description bar. With that done, let's talk about the Griffin choice and what deeper meanings and messages we can decode from said choice. And it is at this point I would like to make a quick caveat that this is my personal opinion. You don't need to agree with me. Hell, you might not agree with me. Maybe your interpretation of what the choice actually means and says is vastly different from mine. That is okay. The amazing thing about analyzing media is that we all come into the space with our own perspectives of what something might mean. And it ultimately leads to quite the enriching experience. What I will, however, disagree with is if you think that choices are random, that they don't matter, that they aren't driven by our subconscious bias and are not reflective of what our values are, what we treasure, and what we want on a general scale. Even the knee-jerk choices we made or we make are often reflective of things that are buried deep within us that we've not really had time to fully explore and examine. You might not like it. I, however, live for things like that. I love staying up at night puzzling things out. The first time we hear mentions of the Griffins in Thedas, it was back in Origins, where our warden is informed about these badass creatures of legends, reading by wardens into battle, and sometimes into death, all in their eternal struggle against the Darkspawn and the Blight. As the warden, you get to express excitement for them and also wonder why on earth you do not get the chance to ride a griffin, which, hard agree, griffins are magnificent. Who wouldn't want to ride them? And so from their very first introduction, the griffins in Thedas are already locked into a role. They are fighters. They are hunters. They are the companions to the one group in all of Thedas whose sole responsibility is fighting against Darkspawn and trying to end the Blight the minute it makes its appearance. That is all they've always existed for. That is all they are known for. It is all they are familiar with. Until now. Until a new path opens up to them with Veilguard. And the fact that this is shown with Assan and Davrin both is important, because Griffins have always existed within context of the wardens who rode them into battle and who they fought side by side with. So it only makes sense that for the writing to explore what other choices exist for them, it will be done by virtue of the relationship they, in this case Assan, have with the wardens, more specifically Davrin. Now, like I said in my Minrathus or Treviso choice video, there really isn't a right or wrong choice to be made in these decisions. Whatever choice that you as the player character make is pretty valid. The reason why I make these videos, however, is to further help with your role playing as you try to puzzle out what kind of person you and or your rook are, and which decision fits what ideology you cling to better. Because to choose to go with the Wardens means that you or your rook is someone who believes that duty matters, that there is an expectation with regards the role we all get to play within society. And if there is a path that you've always taken, that generations that came before you took, one that places you as the last vanguard against the darkness, then that is the only logical path to walk on. To choose to give the Griffins to the Wardens is to determine that what matters most in this world are those who exist to fight for us, to fight the darkness that threatens to overwhelm us, a darkness that can blight our homes and take our loved ones from us. It is a thankless job for sure, but you get to be the shining light, the beacon of uncorruptible will and focus amidst an unending war that we are constantly fighting. It speaks to a rigidity and the safety and surety to be found in walking the course you've always been destined to. Because the thing about wars, about an endless struggle, which let's be honest, life kind of is that due to the fact that it is ceaseless, we do need that. We always need that. Someone, people, creatures who will rise and go to battle. And the Griffins both provide aid to the Wardens, but are also warriors in themselves as well. However, the story shows us that there is a duality in them. Yes, they are warriors. Yes, they can be hunters. Yes, they are fighters. But why do they fight? Why do we fight in the first place? Do we do so because we just want to fight? Do we do so because we take pleasure in the fighting, in the killing? Some people do, yes. But a lot of people do fight because there's something they are protecting. And what they are fighting for, what they seek to protect, is also something they are willing to die for because they believe it is worth it. The same applies to the Grey Wardens. And before you come into my comments and type that, well, the Wardens aren't really fighting to protect anything actually. They fight for their cause, which is why they take on everyone, even murderers and condemned criminals. And to that I will say, what is the cause of the Grey Warden then? Yes, they fight the blight. But to what purpose? Why do they fight it, if not for the people of Thedas? Why are they welcomed in every region they walk into? Because Thedas recognizes that the Grey Wardens are the ones who are willing, who often choose to die, to push back the blight, fight the darkspawn, and offer themselves to kill the archdemons, which is what keeps Thedas safe. So they do what they do to protect the people, whatever it takes. And it is that line of whatever it takes that is tied intricately to the order. It can't really be separated from them. Because as warriors who rise to the fore in moments of war, there is no morality to be had in war. People often make the most questionable decisions because in a war, the focus, the goal is always to win, no matter what. And that is what bred the Gloom Howler turning Isaiah from a warden who recognized the beauty and magic of the Griffins to someone who had to blight them on her superior's command, ultimately breaking her spirit and psyche and setting her off on a journey into becoming the Gloom Howler. A former warden, so corrupted by her guilt and by centuries spent residing in the deep roads, thinking about what was done to the Griffins, that she believes that corrupting Assan's siblings is the only way to ensure their survival. The choice to put the Griffins in the hands of the Wardens is one that speaks to you or your rook, acknowledging that Thedas would always be at war with the Blight. Even as the song of the Blight changes, and therefore we need all the fighters available to fight. But what if you don't believe that fighting or the war is what matters more? What if you believe that what matters is what happens after the war? People rebuilding, flowers growing again, creatures and animals returning, looking for a sense of safety, of familiarity, of home. What if you believe that what matters more is not duty, but freedom? A chance to be who you want to be, not bogged down by the expectations of the storied history of your past existence or heritage. Then you most likely chose to release the Griffins into the care of the Dalish, to become protectors of Alarthan forest. Because in this way, they can continue to maintain their role of protectors whilst also being providers as well. We see in the quest where we meet the Dalish elder Eldrin, who knew Davrin back when he was with the clan and asked us to help find the missing Hala. That quest is more than just, oh, you can't have a Davrin quest without Assan tagging along, that I have seen people complain about a lot on social media, which honestly warrants its own video, because the way in which Davrin challenges traditional roles and expectations of black masculinity, where we see him go from a warrior who's very by the book and focused on the strict role of the Wardens to be fighters and to have the Griffins come along for the ride, to someone who ends up caring for Assan, whose care for Assan goes from shackled responsibility to one of bonding and family, and which in so doing unfurls his past as a shepherd who took up arms to fight and now is become a caretaker at the end again. It's so beautiful. And yet, a lot of people miss out on that. But this isn't Davrin's video. Like I said, I will still make that later. No. This video is about the Griffins. We see throughout our conversations with Davrin as we hunt for the Gloom Howler, and he and Assan slowly forge a bond, that Davrin is racked with questions about what the next step should be, about what other options exist for Assan, for the Griffins, beyond what they've been trained to be, beyond what they've always been seen as. Warriors who stand side by side with the Wardens, who are tied intricately with the Wardens and their duty to Thedas. So when we go searching for the missing Hala, and we get the scene where Assan feeds the sick animal, it dawns on him fully that there is another option available. That believing that there is only one path for the Griffins to take is false. because they are so much more than what they've always been viewed as. And Eldrin confirms this when we return to him to inform him about what Assan did. Going from one who hunts to one who cares is a way in which Assan mirrors Davrin in that scene and that growth, and by extension speaks to what the possible future of the Grey Wardens could be when this is all over and they discover that the world doesn't need them anymore. And before you say it, I know it seems like I'm contradicting what I said earlier. After all, how can I say what comes next when I already established that there will always be the next fight, the next war, the next battle to be won? Well, it simply means that if you belong to the second group, those who chose to release the Griffins in Alarthan and let them follow their own instincts, becoming whatever they choose, and not bound by what is expected of them, then you also believe that there has to be a future, that it can't all be war, that there has to be an end to it, that there has to be moments when you get to take a breath and decide what is next for you and who you get to be, when you're not permanently locked into survival mode, trying to see what's around the next corner that wants to possibly harm you. There are two possible ways to go through this life. Whether it is for you to be constantly on guard against what might come, or maybe it is to dream about what comes after when you're not constantly on edge and convinced that the world is ending. There's also a lot to be said about how choosing to hand the Griffins to the Wardens speaks to a very traditional mindset that you or your rook believe that tradition should be maintained and heritage should be respected and kept. Because the Griffins being with the Wardens as their companions and partners has been something in existence for centuries, hundreds of years. It is a long history that can't just be erased overnight. However, choosing to send the Griffins to Alarthan is realizing that new traditions can be made. New bonds can be forged. A new story can begin. To choose Alarthan is to be more aligned with the thought that traditions can be broken, that being bound to heritage can be limiting in itself as well, that there is a lot of expectations that accompany said heritage, and you get to choose to let it go. Both are valid in that both matter to us all on an individual basis, just to varying degrees. Like I said in the city choice, and as it applies to a lot of ideological choices, there really isn't a right or wrong answer. It all boils down to what matters to us individually, how we navigate life and the situation it brings. And I think a lot of people upset about the writing in Veilguard because they want it to sound or read a certain way, lose sight of a lot of themes that are being explored through the various companions and their quest and the choices that you have to make and what it says about you. I belong to the school of thought that art is meant to reflect us, but also encourage us to consider things about ourselves that we might never have given voice to help us think, process, question, grow, and evolve. And Veil God is living up to that legacy, at least for me. And as I begin my final stretch to endgame, it's given me so much to think about. And for those who are curious, my first run, I chose to send the Griffins into Alarthan. My second run, I'm handing them over to the Wardens. And I will go back and forth for a while. But ultimately, I do think that personally, for my canonical run, I will be going with Alarthan. What about you? What choice did you make for the Griffins? Is that your canonical choice? Let me know in the comments, please, because your girl is curious. Hit the like button if you liked everything or anything I had to say. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Whatever you choose, it's a valid response, as I don't expect everyone to agree with me on everything anyway. If, however, you did agree with anything I've said, do consider sharing my video with others you think would enjoy or appreciate what I have to say. It helps me reach a wider audience who might find that they like my particular corner of the internet a bit better. Plus, it helps my channel grow and is incredibly supportive of my content. Speaking of support, a huge thank you to my Patreons who have been pretty damn instrumental in helping me keep the lights on this channel. Your support means the absolute world to me. Thank you. If you would like to support me on Patreon, the link to do so is in the description box. I make new videos 3 times a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Whilst you wait for new content from me, now would be a good time to watch my What the City You Chose to Save Says About You video. If you like this one, you would most certainly like that one or enjoy that one as well. Until next time, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.